It's lonely at the top. It's a phrase that's been around for a very long time, but it seems to have taken on new power recently, with the US Surgeon General warning about the impact that loneliness can have on us. It's as bad for us as smoking 15 cigarettes a day. So if it is lonely at the top, do we really want our leaders to be unhealthy? And what can we do about it? Welcome to the Mental Space. So, my guest today, once again, it's great to see you again, Naim Maadad, CEO and founder of Gates Hospitality. Naim, welcome back to the Mental Space. Great to be talking again.
Thank you, Scott.
So, I guess the question at the top of the podcast is it really lonely at the top? And how does that play out?
Understatement. I think lonely at the top doesn't actually define it very well. And I just want to break this very profound statement to little sections so everyone can refer to it. Lonely, as we all know, loneliness is actually a very detrimental on human beings. At the top is when you're at the top, you are usually on your own because you have exceeded certain steps that others haven't been able to. So lonely at the top means that you are on your own, and to add few more specifics to it, usually when you are at the top, you're not exactly the most likable person because of your achievements in life, envy, as well as competition, I guess. So all of these added to the loneliness aspect, it just paves the way of how powerful this statement is and how negative it can be if not dealt with appropriately and openly.
I was reading research last week, which was talking about, here in the UAE, we're the third hardest working country in the world. I refuse to believe that Malta and Bhutan are actually working harder than us. But one of the thoughts that crossed my mind, so if we are indeed working harder than we've ever worked, and now we've had this really accelerating pace, and we've got social media, and how have you seen actually the role of leadership change over, say, the last 5-10 years? Does it get harder? Does it get lonelier, even though we're actually more connected perhaps than ever before?
Yeah, I think the fact that we are connected makes it actually harder because there is no rest. And now we're dealing with multi-zones globally, which means, again, more pressures, means different time zones, different working days off and on, and so forth. I genuinely believe that the world is becoming smaller and boundaries on the work front are becoming endless because it means you don't stop. And people today, when they send you an email, when they send you a WhatsApp, when they send you a Twitter, when they send you an Instagram message, they expect an answer within minutes rather than within days. It used to be okay for an email to be responded to within 12 hours, 24 hours, few days, depends on the nature of the content. But today people are so much in a rush. Everybody wants an answer there and then. And that is on its own. It's very demanding. It's very much an issue that we have to kind of say, okay, what's right? What's normal anymore?
I want to bring the audience into where we're sat. We're sat in Folly, very successful restaurant, hugely popular. Obviously very well respected in a number of the top guides. What are the pressures that come with that success? I mean, you and I are having this conversation. Gates Hospitality wants to amplify this conversation about mental health and well-being and creating cultures that thrive. But as you as the leader, as the proud founder and CEO of Gates Hospitality, sat here in Folly, what are the pressures that come with that success?
Look, again, I'm using the word fundamental to a lot of the questions you're asking today, but these are challenges, sadly, that we haven't been able to predict in the past. All of these awards and recognitions come with massive responsibility, with massive commitment, and last but not least, unfortunately, they haven't been very well communicated, defined. So our people are educated in order to participate and basically see how to tackle them. And I'll give you a classic example. Tomorrow is the announcement of Michelin again. And again, there is so much tension in the air. People are saying, are we in? Are we out? Are we maintaining? Are we growing? Are we? And what is the benchmark?
Yeah.
What I did last week, Scott, again, for my own satisfaction is I've asked a bunch of my team members, what does Michelin means to you? Or what does 50 Best mean to you? What does Gourmillot mean to you? Unfortunately, it's not pretty. The answers were not pretty. It's nothing but we're afraid. We are being judged by suits and ties. We are being judged by the Jumeirah Jains, depends which which brand we're talking about. We are being judged by individuals who
These are the Jains that live in the Jumeirah era.
Absolutely. And reality is what makes it very challenging is tell us what the expectation is, and then if we conform, excellent. But if we don't know what the expectation is, what is the benchmark? How do we conform? And I think this has been a very big question mark. The second challenge that we have is what is actually being measured? Is it the food? Is it the ambience? Is it the age? Is it the menu content? Is it the produce? I think fundamentally we need to say stop. Let's define these awards. Let's define what value they add to the business. They do add value. I'm not questioning that for a second. But I'm saying let's be a little bit more communicative about what the content is, how it's achieved, despite the fact that I know a lot of these guys have been very much in the dark. We do business the way we choose to.
Yeah.
But I think it's unfair to go and measure people on their performance without them knowing what the benchmark is.
Now, that strikes me as interesting from two angles. Firstly, how does that play on your team? Because, you've been there already, so there's a lot of expectation that you should be there again. But that means that it's almost like prepping for an exam in a way that you don't know what the questions are. How does that pressure play out on your team, and how do you support your team in the run up to something that you have a certain amount of control on? But as you say, the criteria are a little bit blind. You talk about the men in suits. So all your team can do is kind of show up and do the best job they can, but that's still a lot of pressure on them. So how do you support them as the leader, firstly?
Sure. Look, my role in all of this, Scott, is very simple. I see it as simple, at least. It's making sure that our purpose is clearly defined as a business. Our purpose is very well supported by a mechanism into delivering of service, delivering of products and experiences. We are here because of what we do, not because of who's measuring us. We are here based on our business purpose, based on our business agenda, and we are here based on what we do day in, day out. And that's all I keep reminding my team. Let's not change because others are measuring us. Mm-hmm. Let's continue on doing what we do. Let's excel at what we do in order to make sure we continue our journey. Our journey has been set out before these awards came to the market.
Yeah.
And we were successful at it. So why should we be threatened, scared, change our path without any good reason? So we're here, we do what we do, we continue on excelling in what we do. We have an amazing brands in the marketplace, I should say, as an organization, and we'll continue on doing that. But the amount of pressure that is on the teams, service, kitchen, and I'll let you in on a little secret. Maybe 2 months ago, there was on one of the WhatsApp groups, F&B WhatsApp groups, Michelin inspectors are in town. Alert. So
right.
I guess that week, everybody that came to any venues within the UAE that actually are in the Michelin realm received some amazing service, just based on that one message. Yeah. Because people were nervous, people were tense, and assumed that every diner in the venue, every guest is measuring or could be a potential guest. Shouldn't be that way. We should be. My message to my team is every day, it's like you're on stage. Every day you're performing the same and the same and the same again. And the busier the venue is, the wider the audience that you have. So your performance should be even better. Because usually when I'm listening to my guys, it was so busy, that's why we slipped. Okay, busy, it's a wider audience watching you, so you should be at your level best.
So that's you supporting the team, but there must be a personal cost or a personal price to pay for you. You're there for your team. These are prestigious, well-known. There's perhaps a source of pride in these as well. How do you manage that pressure yourself as a leader so that you're not then paying that down, you're not paying that stress down the line?
It's hard. And frankly, not only with my Gates hat on, with my UAE RG hat on, it's even twice as hard because I'm being looked at as an industry figurehead. And people look at you in multiple limelights. One is his own business, he's representing the industry. So if his businesses have got it, we should all have it.
Yeah.
If his businesses don't have those recognitions, then why is he in that role? So you can't win. And that is adding more pressure, more loneliness, and more questioning to my own self at times. But reality, Scott, is I think it's about confidence. If you are confident in what you do, if you have defined your purpose, your journey very well, I don't think we should be sidetracked with these. These are also commercial businesses. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
So we should not let them interfere with our business. As long as we are very clear on our business journey and we are delivering the best we believe we are delivering based on the brand and the brand promise, we should stick to our guns and we should sleep well. I'm talking to myself now.
Is that a resilient view that you've had all your life? Or is that a realization over a number of years coming into leadership, running the business? Are you a different leader? Did you used to take this more personally? And how have you kind of gone on a journey to be reasonably resilient, even in a kind of pressurized time such as now when you've got, focus on you in that way?
I guess success in its own self gives you more confidence. So the more success you have, the more boxes you're ticking along the journey, the more maturity you're gaining. And I think maybe 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been as confident in saying what I'm saying today. But like I said, they are businesses and we should treat them as businesses. Do they add value to our silo of business, our vertical? Absolutely. But should they take over? Should we lose sleep over their business to have their logos in our venues? Questions to be asked.
This feels like a very personal conversation. But I did want to kind of go there as well. Like that journey you've been on, you say 5 years ago, you may have dealt with it in a different way. What would you define your outlook now then? Is it purely based on that success? Is it perhaps maturity? How have you grown as a leader and been able to stay the leader without being the boss that talks down to the team?
Yeah, look, I think maturity is really the main anchor here. I think you experience so many things in life on a positive note, on a negative note, ups and downs. You travel, you gain insights. You see others committing to successes and or failures. And that's, for me, is always a learning. I genuinely believe that everyone's learning constantly. As long as we don't repeat mistakes, I think mistakes are okay, but as long as we don't continue on repeating them, because it becomes a choice then. It's not a mistake anymore. For me, making sure that we stay on track of our businesses, whether it's 5 years ago or whether it's today, is the biggest encouragement I can give to all of my guys. And I use the word encouragement and my guys in one sentence, because they're my guys. They're my people. They're not my employees.
Yeah.
Tomorrow they could be on the other side, but they're still my guys. I can pick up the phone. They could be working for competition and or a colleague. We can still have a genuine conversation. And I might have shared this with you earlier, Scott. I think today there's very few times where I walk into any establishment, hospitality of some sort, that I don't have someone who's worked with me somewhere in my career. And that's very powerful, because you're all of a sudden you're part of the inner circle. You're one of the colleagues, and there is nothing more satisfying for me as an individual when I walk in and these guys rush up to say hello and they greet you as in you've actually helped me to be here, and very, very fulfilling as a leader. Going back to your question about 5 years ago today, I think satisfaction for me is making sure that confidence is built on facts. Facts are based on success. Successes are based on errors, trials, and life. Yeah, life as it happens. So I think maturity is really what's helping me today to be the neutral person that I am. Seeing my business as business, but seeing the industry as my business as well.
I was having a conversation this morning, and I was at an event listening to an inspiring talk, a guy called Naim Maadad, who talks about employee happiness and indeed leadership happiness. How important is happiness on your radar? Is it something? Are you happy? And how important is it for your employees to be happy?
Look, at the end of the day, the team members, rather than employees, are the guys who actually execute every experience in the hotel, in the restaurant, in the bar. So how important is their happiness is of extreme importance. Yeah. How important is it for me to be happy? Again, Very, very much so. Because if I'm not in a good frame of mind and I'm conducting sessions, meetings, any engagement, then my approach is not necessarily the most supportive. So, frankly, over the years, I've become very aware of my space. I'm extremely comfortable in my skin. I'm extremely comfortable speaking to colleagues, individuals, friends, partners, and no matter where you are in life, I have a space. You have a space. As long as we can communicate in a respectful manner, I think happiness is fundamentally important.
You talked about, I mean, obviously, operations around the world. You talked about there being different staff members that you may be bumping down the line. One of the perhaps unique aspects of the UAE is the fact that many of us are expats, and many of us are away from our families or our extended families, certainly. How has that played into that sense of loneliness, both as a leader, but then as a human being?
So the positive thing about your question is that we're all in the same boat. We're all away from immediate family. We're all away from immediate cultures, which I guess makes this country one of the most tolerable countries around the globe, because we all add values, we all add different experiences, and we are all missing certain things of what we call primary home. Because this is our home today. Primary home is where we were born, I guess, and we were raised and where we were educated. What's very important for me, I think the synergies across, and I can give you personal examples, is how I have changed as an individual from the time I've landed in the UAE back in 1998 until today. The tolerance level now is very much, it's a given. I don't even think about it. When I'm back from Australia, the first 2-3 days, people look at me as he's got a very heavy accent. But without even any thinking, my accent drops. I adjust naturally to my audience. And I think that's only a tip of the iceberg example, but I think we all do it naturally. When we're talking to certain individuals, certain roles, certain categories, whatever you want to call them, you have to adjust. You can't be the same behavior that you would have back in Queensland or back in London or back in elsewhere. We are where we are. And I think this, again, comes with maturity. This comes with personal confidence and comes with being able to read the room.
I'm going to ask you one of those questions that the interviews always ask when they're trying to dig the human being out as well. What do I need to understand about your background, your personal life growing up? What are the values? Who would you say Naim is today? And where have your values come from?
So recently, I actually, on the way back from Australia, my daughter turned 18, and on the plane, 15 hours, I had ample time to write this letter to my daughter about my values. Yeah. And values spoke about heritage, right? That's where I'm from. I can't control that. I can't influence that. I can't change that. Heritage is definitely very strong. Family is at the heart of everything that I do, because, again, everything that I do today, I see myself as a mirror image reflection of the way I've been brought up. My mother, my uncle, and my sisters, who are very close family. It's what I do. And then last but not least, I think there's always an aspiration from a very young age is that some individuals are aware of, others aren't aware of what I will be or what I'd like to become. And I've had that in me from a very young age with not having a father image in my life at all. There's always been an amazing amount of pressure on me, directly, indirectly, of Naim is the man of the family, because there is no other man in our family unit. And that in itself has been an enormous factor to help me shape and really guardrailing my life path, my journey in life. The fact that I wanted to make a change, the fact that I wanted to make sure that I carry that legacy of my father has been very, very profound on me. And last but not least, very much a decision in every decision that I've made. It's pushed me to make decisions in my life. And I'll give you an example. My name Naim a lot of times at school, I remember my teachers at school encouraging me to use my middle name, to use a Western name, because Naim is a very difficult name. And I insisted on using my name because I think that's heritage. I'm not going to change my name for you to be able to be comfortable pronouncing my name. If you can't pronounce it, hey, tough.
It's not that hard. Well, out of interest, what is your middle name?
So I've got multiple, but
Okay.
Anthony is my
Right.
christening name, and
Right.
that's Antoine, actually,
Okay.
as a matter of fact. But
Antoine.
I didn't want to use it.
Yeah.
I don't use it. It's not
Why
my...
was that so important for you? Is the name that connection to your father or to that family
To the
heritage?
family
What did
heritage,
it give you?
It's what my family chose for me.
Yeah.
We don't choose these things. You don't choose your nationality. You don't choose your religion. You don't choose your name. These are things that you're born, given, and a lot of people choose to change them. I choose not to change because for me, that's rejecting my heritage in a sense. For me, that's rejecting what's been given to me by the same people who gave me life, which is very profound.
Why do you feel that so deeply? And along the way, I mean, that seems to have shaped you a lot. Why do you feel that so deeply? And has that always been a guide or a blessing? Or has there been times when that's actually quite a responsibility or a burden?
All of the above.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that very comfortably is, many times at school, I really wanted to change my name. It's like I'm sick and tired of people saying, "What's your name?" Right? And my surname doesn't help. Maadad as well. It's many times I wanted to change that, but I think I put my foot down, and that describes my personality. That describes my tenaciousness to a certain extent. And really, today, if you ask a lot of people around me, they say, "You are very strong-headed," and I am strong-headed. But if I wasn't strong-headed, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And strong-headedness is actually a blessing when you are at the top.
Yeah.
And I say that because, sadly, in life, not everyone's happy to see you successful. And you need to be comfortable in your skin. You need to be confident of your product, confident of your knowledge, confident of the manner you present yourself in order to continue on doing what you're doing. A lot of people out there who are patting you on the back and others who are trying to trip you.
Have you managed then throughout your career, that strong-headedness, has that always kept you sort of connected to who Naim is? Because it is very easy when you get successful and you've got those people patting you on the back to think, I need that validation all the time. As opposed to there's that old phrase, which is, if you can treat success and failure with, as the same, you'll be okay. Whereas everybody wants fame and fortune sometimes, but it's not always going to be there. So how have you, as you've grown more successful, remained, I guess, humble?
I love the word validation, right?
Yeah.
Because I think it's very essential in life. But I think the source of validation is what we should be asking ourselves. Who is it coming from? Is it people that I couldn't care less about, frankly, and it's going to give me a satisfaction for a matter of minutes?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it people who have stood by me, who have seen me grow, develop, and become the person that I am all my life? So I think validation today, I say to all of my people today, it's just don't go by what their phone says. Just because Google says it's correct, it's how is it validated? We need to make sure we ask ourselves, who's validating and how is it being validated? So validation is very essential, I think, for me. And you need to make sure that validation is by the people who actually matter, for the good and the bad.
How important is your own validation?
Very. But again, that's merely a sign of me and my comfort in my own skin.
Yeah.
Plus, I have my own principles. At the top, you don't have anyone waking you up every morning saying, today you have to do A, B, C, D, or you don't have a boss checking on your KPIs or your curricle path or whatever you want to call these lovely terms. You have to draft them, execute them, review them, challenge them, and so forth.
How do you balance that responsibility to the financials? Because if the financials don't make sense, everyone's out of work, with being a human being and being that leader that wants to lead the team. Because that's, you've got two. I'm a genuine believer in the fact that they don't have to be mutually exclusive. In fact, if you lean into one, the other one, the result takes care of itself if the culture's right. But how do you marry those? Because you're the guy, ultimately, the book stops with?
Look, I think transparency is key here, because everybody that you are entrusting with a role needs to understand the implications they have on the business, positive, negative, growth, slowness, whatever it is. And I think if you are transparent, if you are clear and very much define the parameters of where this individual should be playing, then you can't be wrong.
I wanted to circle back to where we came in on the conversation, where we were talking about, loneliness at the top. Often career progression, it seems to be that sometimes the only way for people to progress is to leave behind the thing that they love and then become a manager of the process. And then ultimately we have people who are kind of caught in that loneliness because the only way to make more money is to become a leader. What are the essential skills for leadership? And do you think everyone, not everyone can be a leader? Otherwise, we need a team and we need different individuals in the team. Not everyone can be the striker, shall we say. So what's your view on leadership? What are the qualities? Who should be called to the bar? Because if I look at the corporate world today, I think there are a lot of people who are good at a process, but that makes them terrible leaders.
Leaders aren't necessarily trained to become leaders. You have it in you from a very young age to become a leader and be able to balance commercialism, the human factor, driving a business, targets, and making sure you stay grounded. Because a lot of people, sadly, when they hit a particular title, they feel disconnected, which is incorrect.
So I just want to stay with those qualities of leadership again one last time then. Just so what would you define as the human qualities needed to be a good leader?
I'm going to start with empathy. I think people need to understand that the role that people that report into me, I need to understand their role. I need to understand their duties, their responsibilities, their ethos as well to a certain extent. So empathy is important to making sure that the actual job itself is well understood by the individuals. So the benchmarking and the challenging part is done at a reasonable and a deep and meaningful way as well. And last but not least, I think it needs to be balanced between, like I said earlier, the human factor, the commercial aspect, the sales and marketing aspect, and the operational aspect. These 4 chapters for me, verticals, are very important to make sure that leaders have the capacity to balance these 4 cycles to make sure they understand what they are.
I'm going to ask you one last question. I'm going to circle back to, you mentioned your daughter earlier. You said she's 18. I've also got a boy who's 21 who's starting in his first job at university. We look at, after university, reports that continually tell us that Gen Z are one of the most stressed generations out there right now. And often the mindset is that they're snowflakes, that they're not resilient. What do you say to trainees coming into the workplace? What do you say to your daughter about, because we know their values are perhaps different to what we put up with when we entered the world of work. It did used to be yes sir, no sir, 3 bags full sir. And I know you've done a lot of work trying to change the culture inside of kitchens so people do feel more empowered. But how do you prepare our kids to enter the world of work? What do they need to understand about the journey they're about to go on?
Very powerful question. And look, I wish I had the capacity to answer this and document this, because I think we are facing a problem. And sadly, there is nobody to blame but our generation. Because we worked so darn hard to provide them with so much that we actually spoiled them, which is a problem in its own. However, I think what's happening today between technology, artificial intelligence, and all of that, I think the best thing that we can do, Scott, today is make sure that we plant the best seeds that we can in their life journeys and nurture those seeds, because ultimately I genuinely believe that your family, your kids, your team members, your employees will always look up and say, what would he or she have done if they are in this situation? I think that's the best advice we can give. That's one. 2, I think equally as important, that the way we lead our lives today, we shouldn't underestimate that. We should make sure that we constantly are a classic benchmark for them. So every time they look at us, they'll remember. In 5, 10, 15 years, they would say, my mum, my dad, my boss, my leader, did this, and I should be doing the same. So again, as a classic role model, we shouldn't underplay ourselves. And last but not least, we should also make a huge effort for ourselves to change, because they are not about to change. We've painted this picture for them as this is what life is, and they're not having any issues comparing. We are having issues because we're comparing. They don't have anything to compare with.
No.
So it's the onus is really on ourselves to say, how do we bridge the gap between their generation and our generation? Because we can see both generations. They don't have access to our generation. They have access to us, but they can't validate the stuff that we have gone through. They have no interest in understanding what a mortgage is. They have no interest in purchasing a vehicle today because I can catch an Uber. That's what I'm told all the time. Yeah. So their values, their principles, their understanding of life is very difficult. And I stress by design that we have delivered to them accidentally, over-delivering on making sure their lives are convenient and to the next best level possible. But I think the reality is we need to make sure that we make a huge effort to adjust ourselves. And I'm not suggesting for a second we drop our values here.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that we try and balance the equation.
Does that come back to empathy? Because, I mean, I've always found it fascinating that we call them snowflakes. I mean, if we remember the world of work we entered, we didn't have social media. We didn't have the pressures of comparison. We didn't have WhatsApp. We didn't have people calling you out on social media. We didn't have internet. We didn't have email. You know, we entered a much kind of slower pace. And even within the hospitality industry that you've been part of, that the ability for someone just to criticize one thing that you did on a bad day, that then becomes defining of an individual on social media and all the pressure that comes with. Do we need to empathize with our younger generation? Is that something that leaders kind of need to let go of romanticizing the past? I mean, I don't know how many leaders I've heard say, well, we were miserable and it never did us any harm, except actually it probably did do us some harm. And actually we need to let go of that and meet them more in the middle.
Look, I did use the word empathy for the exact reason.
Yeah.
I think that we need to join the gap. We need to make sure that we understand our past and their future, and how do we balance that equation. And I think by no means is it an easy task. I think, but like I said, we can see the past. We lived the past. We went through these motions and processes, positive, negatives, whatever they may be. They can only repeat the stories that we've told them. They haven't lived those motions.
Yeah.
So the onus is really on ourselves to bridge that gap and make sure that we try and educate them as much as possible in order to make sure that they have a sound, deep and meaningful life as well, not just a superficial life based on non-validated facts and figures.
Yeah. Naim, as always, brilliant to talk to you on the mental space. Thank you as well to Gates Hospitality for amplifying and raising the volume on this conversation. I know we're going to have more conversations over the coming weeks and months. So thank you for that. Naim Maadad, thank you so much for being on the mental space. If you've enjoyed this conversation as much as I had, of course, then please feel free to subscribe on any of the podcast platforms, or you watching us on YouTube, hit subscribe and follow more of these great conversations. Naim, thank you so much.
Thank you.